around the world, wherever you are. Thank you so much for your eyes. And like how we have your attention, do us a favor, no man. Share this video with a friend or two or 5,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can put them to our guest. Now, people, tell me honestly, how many of you know somebody who would rush into a burning building to rescue you? Think about it. Well, it's actually a trick question because you probably know plenty of them. Not by name, of course, but you definitely know them. They are the members of the Jamaica Fire Brigade. And needless to say, they deserve our respect and admiration for the service they provide on the country's behalf. Now, the Fire Brigade this week is celebrating Fire and Life Safety Awareness Week, and we're here to talk more about how we as citizens can help make the duties of the firemen easier based on how we approach our own personal safety, as well as that of our homes, our businesses, our vehicles, and so much more. And here to give us a strong talking to on the subject is Acting Assistant Commissioner of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, Mr. Emilio Ebanks. Welcome, Mr. Ebanks. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
All right, so Mr. Ebanks, this is an annual event, Fire and, let me make sure I get that right, Fire and Life Safety Awareness Week. So let's just give persons an idea of what exactly the week is designed to accomplish when it comes to, just getting persons aware of what work you do and so on and so forth.
All right. Fire and Life Safety Awareness Week. Firstly, this is our 25th year observing Fire and Life Safety Awareness Week. The main aim is for us to get a little bit closer to the citizens of the country with the message of fire prevention. As you see for this year, the theme is empowering citizens to create fire-safe communities. And part and parcel of this theme is because of the COVID pandemic, we cannot get out there to individuals in the normal way. So we decided that the best way to go about this is, of course, media such as this one, where we can reach individuals to get the message of fire safety to them so they can assist in the prevention of fires because, as we say, prevention is better than cure. And we would rather prevent these fires than having to be putting out these fires. So in a nutshell, it is really to empower citizens to get the message out there to you as to how to prevent fires. And in the unfortunate situation that a fire occurs, what to do during the fire and after the fire. So that's it in a nutshell, what it is really about.
All right, so talk to me about some of the activities that you planned and executed this week to get the awareness out and sensitize the public about fire and life safety and fire and safety awareness and so on and so forth.
Right. Well, as is customary in Jamaica, whenever we are starting any at all, we normally have a church service. So we started with a church service on Sunday. Of course, for the most part, it was virtual. So we streamed on all our pages, and I want to ask persons now to go over and like our pages as well. All of them are at Jamaica Fire Brigade. So Facebook is at Jamaica Fire Brigade, Instagram at Jamaica Fire Brigade, and we also have a YouTube page at Jamaica Fire Brigade. So go over and like our pages, and you can see all the activities that we have done so far for the week, and a lot more activities that we are looking to do during the week as well. So, for example, on Monday, all parishes across the island had community intervention programs. So we would have gone across different communities, and for the most part, again, we'd had to, do it virtually. So what we did is that we found out the needs before us, because of course we'd look at the statistics and see the greatest needs for different parishes, different communities, and we would try to address these in our community forums. And these community forums, of course, we would have invited almost everybody that we could come across, and we have the postings on Facebook. Persons would hear us going through their communities with town criers, giving them information, giving them tips as to how to prevent fires. Yesterday, we had a university forum, and that catered to university students who are in the built environment area. And the reason for that is if you look around Kingston, mostly Kingston and St. Andrew, you'll see a whole lot of buildings going way up.
Yeah.
In another interview I did this morning, the person pointed out that we are no longer going east to west building anymore. We're going
south to
north.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did is that, of course, these buildings have to be built to codes and specifications and all of that. So we sought to bring the students up to speed with where we are in terms of the technology, the codes that we utilize whenever we are processing the building plans for approval, and of course, how to better design these buildings to make sure that the buildings can assist in preventing fires, and the buildings, of course, can ensure that the persons who reside in these buildings are kept safe. And in the event of a fire, the buildings can start the detection, they can detect the fire and start the firefighting phase before the Jamaica Fire Brigade gets there.
All right, so we're talking about smart buildings and buildings better equipped with fire safety equipment. I mean, you talk about your sprinkler systems, your extinguisher systems, yeah. I guess some buildings I know even have like illuminated floor so that they can show you the exits and things like that. That's what we're talking about, right?
That is exactly what we're talking about. We now have fire detection systems that are wireless, as you said, smart buildings. So you don't need hardwired systems in a building anymore. As you rightly said, sprinkler systems. We also have buildings that have other gases. So you don't, if you should have a fire and there's water will make it worse. So we have other gases, in some of these buildings that will assist in extinguishing these fires before the fire brigade gets there. So as you rightly said, these are smart buildings, and how we go about designing these buildings to ensure that for the most part, the minimum standard of the Jamaica Fire Brigade is 90 minutes. So the building must be able to facilitate a firefight for 90 minutes. So the sprinkler systems, if you, for example, one of these buildings and all the sprinkler heads go off, all the sprinkler heads must provide coverage for at least 90 minutes, a minimum of 90 minutes. And you as an occupant in this building, once you get into one of the exit areas, so, for example, when the alarm goes, it shuts down, sorry about that.
No problem, yeah.
Shuts down the elevators. The elevators are grounded. During this phase, when the elevators are grounded, you will now have to walk from the penthouse to the ground floor. Once you get into that space is kept safe for a minimum of 90 minutes. So that is how the buildings are designed. So as you rightly said, smart buildings, but for us to make the job of the fire brigade easier, we were educating these individuals as to what to do, how to design the buildings.
As you can see, well, just for those online, that's not just a message for our students, that's a message for our architects, our building planners, our developers, things like that, things to consider as you manufacture these new styles of buildings that we see going up all over the country. And we'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to hear if there's anything you want to ask Mr. Ebanks. He's right there. The fireman is right there, If you want to talk to him about anything related to how you can build your building to make sure that you can better enable them or facilitate them, because the last thing you want is for your building to go up and a fire break and you lose your whole investment. So it's best to just work with the fire brigade from the outset so that, you can preserve your investment and make sure that it's safe if indeed a fire does break out. We just want to hear from everybody online. This is not a one-way show. This is why we have it. We want to hear from you. We want the questions. We want the comments. We want the interaction, people. Mr. Ebanks is right there. Is there anything you've ever wanted to ask a fireman? See him here. Ask him, man. That's why we have him. We placed him right here so that we can have an interactive discussion, even as much as we talk about Fire and Life Safety Awareness Week. All right. So, Mr. Ebanks, I just had a question as you were talking about these buildings and these new safe buildings and so on. I can imagine it must be a real struggle for you sometimes because I know that a lot of our buildings in Jamaica are, decades old, centuries old, some of our older, bigger buildings and things like that. What are some of the challenges you face as you get to some of these locations and, you have to be able to be the one who comes to and find a way to preserve the building, preserve its contents, preserve the lives of the people who are inside it and so on. What would you like some people to be aware of even as they work in some of these older buildings and so on, so that they can preserve their own lives or at least be able to keep things okay until that 90-minute window when you can get there to lend some support?
One of the main things, or one of the main issues we come across is that in these buildings, as you said, these buildings have been there for quite a while when the standards were different. Most cases, the standards were lower. So they were designed for that particular time. And what you find is that because they were designed for that particular time and the standards have changed, the codes have changed, then there's a difficulty getting them up to the present standards. So when we get there as fire brigade, what we come across is that a lot of times these buildings, they have a change of use and they did not alert the fire brigade before that. So a building, for example, that let's say was built as a factory is now housing something totally different. So on record, we might have a factory there. And then when you get there, it's a plaza. So up into different places, different areas. You might not be able to access this area because you come across grills and then, we're going to have to cut through those grills to get in. And then when you get in there, it's something, as I said, totally different. So the change of use is one of the main things that we come across. And when you have change of use of buildings, of course, layout is going to be different. Electrical supply, you might have different supplies coming into different areas. So there are just a myriad of things that you come across during that time. And each time you have to surmount the different obstacles as you go along. So we recommend to persons, any change of use at all of a building, you must first seek approval from the Jamaica Fire Brigade and from the local authorities as well. Ensure the safety of not just the occupants of the building, but we, the emergency responders who are coming in as well. Because, we have to ensure that our members are safe so that we can protect you, the individuals who are in the building. It's very important that this dialogue is continuous. And we here at the Jamaica Fire Brigade, especially the Fire Prevention Department, we are here for just that, to guide you, to assist you, to ensure that the building that you're setting up, your house, if it comes down to that, the legislation does not allow us to go into private dwellings unless it's a multifamily, like an apartment building. But if you want us to come in and look at your house, we do that as well, because as I said earlier, if we lose one life, our aim is to ensure that life is preserved. If you notice the tagline, so to speak, of the Jamaica Fire Brigade is saving lives and protecting property. That's what we're about. And we would rather prevent the fires than come out there and be putting out the fires.
Be putting them out, absolutely.
Once you have to fight a fire, that's a fight that you don't ever win. Because even if we get there and we save lives and all of that, some amount of property is going to be destroyed. And you spoke about an investment earlier. For most of us Jamaicans, a house is the largest investment we'll ever make. So we have to protect it.
Absolutely. So you hear that, people? If you have a building, get in touch with the parish council, get in touch with the fire brigade so that they are aware of what the building is being used for. The last thing you want, as Mr. Ebanks say, they have on record a factory, and when they come, they're expecting to deal with a wide open space or something like that, and get there is actually a plaza or some kind of subcontracted or compartmentalized thing where they have to go through different kind of structures to get to you and save your life. If they are not aware of it, how are they supposed to respond adequately? And that must be a real frustration. I can imagine.
And one of the things about this as well is that these type of fires tend to happen in the dead of night.
Yeah.
And you So it's pitch dark, and you're working your way through. So you have to now be making sure, as I said, the safety of the response team, and you're going in there to do search and rescue in under ideal conditions, and the layout that you have of the building has been changed and severely altered, so it makes it extremely difficult.
There is one thing I saw, I guess I saw it on television the other day. In Jamaica, we have I mean, in some ways, it is very commendable. You know what I mean? Whenever fire happens in our building, people are, they're willing to run in and try and help each other. But from what I was watching, is like people don't account for example, that fire will combust, or you have chemicals in the home. And because of the fire, they become gasified. They get concentrated and become a gas. And you running into that house, all kind of things you're breathing. You think you're going in there to help somebody, save somebody, and preserve somebody's property, but you're really putting yourself at risk. So how do you, I mean, I can't imagine you want people running into burning buildings because they're not necessarily trained, but how do you talk to people to let them appreciate that? We like what you're doing, but leave it to the professionals. How do you respond to that sentiment, generally speaking?
All right. It's exactly what you just said a while ago. We like what you're doing, but leave it alone. And I will probably shock some persons into reality. A fire can only kill you outside of inhalation of the smoke if it fries your lungs. So 99% of the persons who die from fires, they die from smoke inhalation. You will feel a choking effect, and it will knock you unconscious, and from there you will die. So our mantra in the Jamaica Fire Brigade is, once you are out, stay out. Now I know a whole lot of persons will question me, and that I've had persons take me to task about whoever is left inside there. On a personal basis, you have to decide if what's inside there is more important than what's outside, which is you. So it's on a personal basis for me. If my son or my daughter is inside there, I'm going to go in and get them out. That's it. Whether or not, I have the equipment or anything like that, I'm going to go in there and get them out. That's a personal risk. But from the Jamaica Fire Brigade perspective, we have to tell you, once you are out, stay out. So what we ask of individuals, and this is something that the helpful nature of Jamaicans become our downfall. Once you see a fire, call the Jamaica Fire Brigade. So here's what happens. Most times, we come across a fire, and this is especially us males. So man, we can deal with that.
Yeah, man.
We go into firefighting mode, right? And then when it gets to that point where we cannot deal with it, it is way past the time when we should have called for help. So it's way past that time. And then you call the fire brigade, and most persons will not know the number to their nearest fire station. That is something I always say to persons. You need to know the number to your nearest fire station. So I'm going to use this medium to invite persons. If you're passing a fire station, just go in there, speak to the firefighters, get some information. The information you get might mean the difference between life and death. It's as simple as that. Just go in there, get some information, speak to the firefighters, acquaint yourself with the operations of the Jamaica Fire Brigade. Those pretty trucks that you see in there cost sometimes upwards of $100 million of your money. So go in there, acquaint yourselves, and get used to the operation, get information that, as I said, might save your life, a loved one life, or might save your investment, the largest investment that most of us ever make. So we need to do that.
Now, let me ask you this now. I know it is an ongoing conversation because there are many persons who are used to the traditional way of doing things, but the relationship with the farming community and persons who like to do what we call the slash and burn agriculture, which, causes bushfires, which in turn cause some significant damage and so on. What's the message? What's the conversation? What is the information that you wish to leave with that community to let them appreciate the severity sometimes of what they can contribute to, if you understand what I mean?
Yeah. All right. If you recall, in 2015, we had a massive fire in Upper St. Andrew, East Rural St. Andrew. Communities. It started in, I think, Mavis Bank and went across Flamstead, went over into St. Thomas at one point, I think. And from that, we went into these communities and we trained these communities, especially the farmers, because they lost millions, maybe billions were lost in that fire. So we went there and we trained them. Last week, we went back into those communities. I took a team up there to speak with the individuals, because since we've done that training, we've not had a single large fire in those areas. Mm. So we went up there to get some feedback. And one farmer said something to me that I'm now using as a tagline, and I want to pass it on to the rest of the farmers. He said when he was going through and speaking to the other farmers in his community, he always tells them, if you slash, don't burn. And this is, as you said, this is something that we're used to as farmers. Mm-hmm. See the farmers clearing their land, and when they are through whatever they clear, they bank it up somewhere and they light it. And we've had number of fires. We've had a number of these fires starting from that situation. So he just took that as his tagline, and he used that. If you slash, don't burn. It's as simple as that. So from that training exercise, we spoke to another of our NGOs that we normally work with, which is RADA. And RADA went into the communities and showed the farmers how to use that same so-called refuse that they were taking from the era that they were cleaning up, to create compost and to create mulch. And that in turn, of course, up the yields that they were getting from their farms. And that is something that we are replicating across the island. So persons can understand that there are other ways to do things, and these methods have been tried and tested. I always tell people I grew up in St. Elizabeth, where farmers in St. Elizabeth, whenever they clear grass from their land, they would then dry that grass, clear the land properly, and lay the grass out, and then plant under the grass. So the grass would keep the area mulched and provide some amount of coverage as well in trapping the moisture below, so that it would feed the plants when they are coming up. So these are tried and tested methods, and really it's about sharing the joy with other individuals.
All right. So just to let me know, that segue was just to let persons know that fire safety is not just in the buildings or in the built environment in the more developed areas. Farmers, you have a role to play. Agriculturalist persons further afield in rural Jamaica, this is something that applies to you too. It concerns you too. The last thing you want is mass time to start a fire up in a theme farm, and then you witness a fire coming towards your farm and you don't even know what to do.
Exactly. So,
you know what I mean? So it really requires collaboration and just communication and sensitization amongst all our stakeholder groups.
That is exactly what we are doing. And persons have to understand that everyone has a role to play when it comes to preventing fires. And the other thing that we really have to look at as well, the situation of the farmers. Whenever a farmer is affected, it affects all of us.
Absolutely.
When we look at the supply and demand, after these massive fires, there is always a hike in the price of ground provisions. And, us Jamaicans especially, we love the seasonings from St. Elizabeth. Yeah, throwing in a shameless plug for St. Elizabeth here, but
Not wrong with it.
yeah, we like it. It's just the truth, and that's how it is. So whenever we have these fires, supply and demand comes into play, and the price goes up. So it's beneficial to all of us, when we spread the message of fire prevention and safety.
Right. So let me switch tack and put things on a different track. No, one of the things I came across is that whenever you have persons staying at home more often, as is the case with the current pandemic, this is when you tend to see, as firemen tend to see an increase in the fires. Has this been the case for you guys? And so with that in mind, what is the message to householders, persons at home who have to remain at home during the pandemic, especially with our kids home and so on? Let's talk about that.
Well, I have my fingers crossed. We have not been seeing huge uptick. But generally speaking, that's something that we normally see. I don't know if it's because, yes, the children are at home, but in a lot of the cases, parents are at home as well because of the work from home situation. But for those who can work from home. But what we know is that today is the 28th of October. We're going into the Christmas period. And even though we expect a quieter than normal, Christmas period, there are a lot of things that are associated with Christmas. And us Jamaicans, we like to decorate, we like to be cooking up a storm, that kind of thing. So generally, the instances of house fires increase during the Christmas period. So we want to start from now to warn individuals to make sure that you are doing all you can to prevent these fires taking place, because once you have an uptick in house fires, then of course you're going to have an uptick in the loss of lives.
Right.
In recent history, or as far as I can recall, we've only had one death from a bushfire in Jamaica, and it was in St. Elizabeth some years ago. The others are normally from building fires, especially house fires. Over 70-80% of the fires that we have, or maybe way more than that, fire deaths that we have are from house fires. Because you see, generally speaking, what happens is that the employers will take more time and put more effort into making the workplace safe than we do in our personal lives at home. Because if you ask your coworkers, anybody, ask your coworkers or ask yourself, when was the last time you had a fire drill at work? Maybe recently, but when was the last time you had one at home? Ever?
Yeah, we can't.
So exactly. So there's a plan for work, but you don't really put a plan in place for home. And as I said, unfortunately, that's where most of the deaths from fires take place. So the same way we plan for work, operationalize that plan and make it more fitting for home. So you put a home plan in place where everybody understands they have a different role to play to make sure that if there is, then everybody knows what it is that they are supposed to do. If you put it in perspective, let's look at when we were setting up for this interview. You have a role to play, the engineer has a role to play, the sound man has a role to play, the cameraman has a role to play, everybody has a role to play. And for it to come off, everybody has to play their role. So you need to plan for emergencies at home in very much the same way.
All right. So let me ask, I know this is something that you talk about on a regular basis in terms of overloading circuits, wiring, etc. And that does come back to the issue of more people being at home. Mm-hmm. With that in mind, what kind of advice or what kind of considerations should persons be thinking of when they're at home and knowing that, there are 3 people at home, That one they have tablet for charge, that one they watch TV, that one they on computer, that one they have this device at work. You understand what I mean? So many
Definitely, yeah,
things
man.
that people are in the space more now because we're at home. It's the pandemic. It's just the nature of things. So what kind of considerations should people be keeping in mind at this time?
One of the first things I want to get out there is that if your house was passed more than 5 years ago, you remember when that government inspector came there and did those checks. That was done more than 5 years ago. You need to call in a certified and a licensed electrician. Not the virgin from down the road, we can do some electrical work. Because what you want is a certified and licensed individual who can check to make sure that the systems are working in the way they should. I had a friend pointing out something to me yesterday, and he was saying, if you have a skin problem, you don't go to a cardiologist. But if you have a heart problem, you don't go to any other doctor but a cardiologist, right? So what he was saying is that we need to have the right individuals coming to do the right job. So you need a certified and a licensed electrician. Do a run through. Make sure that the breakers are still operating in the way they should. Make sure that you're not having any chafing of wires. You know, Jamaica is a tropical country. So we have a lot of, wires probably run over the ceiling, that kind of thing. And over there is extremely hot. So the insulation might be breaking down. And one telltale sign that you're having problems is if you see ants coming out of your sockets or your light switches or anything like that. They are not just in there because they're homeless. They are in there because conditions in there favor them. So they are getting some food, they are getting warmth, and they are in there creating more havoc. So once you see that, it's a telltale sign that something is wrong. You're not supposed to be plugging in a device and seeing any kind of sparking taking place. Once you see that happening, it's time to call in an electrician. If you have the machine on and the TV and the different devices charging and you see the lights start doing this, it's a sign to call an electrician. Any kind of flickering of the lights or anything like that, if you're hearing sparking in the lights and the sockets anywhere at all, it's time to call in an electrician. And again, I always point out to persons, these things tend to get worse at 3 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why. It's always in the dead of night. And then compound this situation with you not having any detection devices now. Because again, most of us will have detection devices at work. In the office. Yes, we have them. But how many persons have smoke detectors installed at home?
Or a fire extinguisher.
Exactly. So we don't have these things. So you don't have a detector. Something starts at 3 a.m. You're not going to be alerted to it until when it's too late. And that's the reality. So I want to put a plug in there again. You can get smoke detectors at different establishments across Jamaica. I've seen smoke detectors, 2 going for under $3,000. Two AA batteries are a 9-volt battery. You peel the back of it off, put the battery in there, stick it up in the middle of your roof, in the middle of your ceiling. That might be the difference between life and death. And I like to put it that way, that it might mean the difference between life and death, because that's really what it comes down to. We've gone to so many fires, and when you get there, you see individuals struggling to get out, or you realize that this individual was making an effort to get out but was overcome by the smoke. I've seen individuals die at grills with a key in their hand. So when you see these things, you realize that these persons were alerted to this situation when it was too late. It's as simple as that. And I want to point out very quickly, there's a very thin line between not just love and hate, but security and safety.
Yep.
You know,
I was just about to ask you about that. The grill thing is like a two-edged sword when you really think about it in Jamaica. It's for security, but then it trap you inside.
Exactly. And that is something that we have to find ways to work around. So I always point out to persons when the grill man is doing the grill work for you. It's the same way he sets up the door grill where it can turn like this and open. But it's in and out. You can build the window grills the same way. So just imagine your window is a door. You build the grills the same way. In the event of a fire, you open the grill and you go through the window. So what you're doing, if you have one door to your bedroom, but you have two windows, that's 3 exit points. Exactly. But bring it down to one when you grill the 2 windows and you fix the grills onto the walls.
Exactly.
Make sure that you grill your windows in the same way you grill the doors. So you can swing them, and worst case scenario, you have to kick out the piece of glass or the window. You push it out and you step out and you go out. When you're doing that now, for security, get a small padlock and put on it. And I know persons are saying, but that going to defeat the purpose. No. You have to make sure, 1, the small padlock is easy to hit off. 2, you have to make sure that you culture yourself and culture your household in such a way that 3 a.m., when that fire goes and it would have knocked your electricity supply out, you can get up and go directly to where the keys are kept. When I'm in my house, my keys are kept at one spot. My helper knows that when she moves the key from here, you put it back. It's a standard. The keys are at one spot once I'm in. And let me go for my keys and show you now.
Yeah, that is a big one, because I can even speak for myself. I know the key is in a general area, but not in a specific location. And I think that's our problem.
Specific location. And you see, these are my keys. Most of us men, we have this on it for, that's a reason.
Yeah.
These are the keys. You notice it's 3 keys. Now, look at this key. This key opens the entrance grills, back and front. You can get locks that they call keyed alike locks. You get 4 locks, 1 grill that 1 key opens. This front door. This back door. That's it.
It's a minimal key. We know people who have one key ring and it have 10 different key on it. And when in the fire, you have buck shuffle and you look and try find which key open which door. And because you're so panicked, you don't even remember which key door. And you're just so stressed out. And if you can't keep a cool head, you're losing time. Situation.
Exactly. Now I'm going to show you another thing with the keys. Look at this now. You notice the shape of this key? It's a very ugly key. I like to call it the ugly key. But the shape of it is different from the shape of this one. It's different from the shape of that one. So in the dead of night, when I'm closed, my eyes are closed, I can tell you that this is the ugly key because of the shape of it. So I know that this is the key that opens the grill. So when I get to the grill, I don't have to be buck shuffling and checking all around. I know exactly which one opens what.
And that's big facts.
One spot.
That's a major piece of information. I hope people appreciate that. That is a simple fact, but that will save millions of lives. That way you just say, oh, like, trust me. I guarantee.
It's as simple as that, man. Simple as that. So 3, 4, 5, whatever time, reach to the spot, grab the key and move. That's it. So you make sure that going back to grilling your windows now, make sure that you do the same thing with the keys for the window. They are kept at one spot. And you don't need to take those keys out of the house. Those keys are kept at that one spot, open, swing, and move.
Let me ask you this.
Say that again.
I was going to ask you, you watch TV, you see these movies and so on, and movies kind of show you a situation where, in terms of you're in a burning building and you need to get out, or you're trying to get out, getting out quickly, but minimizing damage or injury to yourself. They suggest, I guess, covering yourself with a wet blanket or something like that. But I'm asking you, Mr. Fireman, I'm in a burning building. I wake up, see the fire around me. I know where the window is. How do I move out to ensure that I am safest?
All right. First thing you must remember, hot air rises. The smoke, the contaminants, most of those things will be going up. So the first thing you want to do is to get low, as close as possible to the ground. And the wet blanket that you said earlier, the rag over your face, that thing, it helps. It creates a filter. So that can be done. But the most important part is keeping as low as possible and crawling. When you get to a door, you test the handles of the door like this. The back of your hand. Right. And the reason for that is, if you are going with the palm, you tend to grab. So you're going to be so excited that you get to the door, you're going to do this. And worst case scenario, here's an electrical wire down around there, and it's touching onto the door handle, and you get electrocuted. Or it's extremely hot, and you grab onto it, and it sticks your hand onto it. So you test with the back of your hand, because reflexes will move the hand and bring it back to your body. So once you test, door is fine, you open, and you move. Now, another fact for persons to look at. Exit doors should be hinged to go out. So you're not supposed to get to a door and having to back up to get through the door. Once you get to that door, you push that door out. So the exit doors must be hinged to go out. And the reason for that is, so you're there and wife or husband and kids and all of that, everybody is lined up behind you. And you get to that and you have to be saying, back up, back up, back up, back up. No, you're wasting time there, because this door may be 4 feet across, 3 feet 6 inches. You now have to back up that distance for that door to give you clearance to go through. Right. So once you get to the exit door, it's supposed to push out and you continue on your way. And as you rightly said, you want to minimize damage. So I know the persons are going to be asking about those individuals who live on the way up there. The buildings are designed in such a way that you have staircases, you have alternate exits. And when we are looking at those buildings, travel distance is taken into consideration. So we don't want you traveling more than 40 meters, for example, to get to an exit. So we make sure that the buildings are designed in such a way for those individuals who like to live penthouse or the upper floors. They are designed in such a way that you can get to an exit very quickly. And the exit is either on the outside of the building, or if the exit is inside, it is isolated in such a way that once you get inside there, the contaminants will stay outside. It's a pressurized staircase. And an example of a pressurized area, when you go to a building that has air conditioning, if you notice when you're on the outside and you pull the door, there's a rush of the cool air coming in, because the AC builds up pressure inside there to keep the room cool and to keep the hot air on the outside. So it's the same thing that's done inside of these staircases to protect you, the occupants, once you get inside there.
All right, fantastic. Now, to switch tacks just a little bit again, good information. I hope people are paying attention. Those fire safety tips that Mr. Ebanks just give you, those will save your life. Think about them. Get the ugly key, get a set of keys. just to quickly recap, get a set of keys that stay one place. A key that
Yes.
you can identify with your eyes closed. A key that you can, everybody knows it, knows how to use it, knows how to turn the lock, open it. Because, they have these new fancy lock nowadays, Mr. Ebanks. You know what I mean? That require
Yes.
all kind
Yes.
of entanglements to try and special ways and so on because of security. But obviously, they become impractical in the case of a fire or emergency like that. So
Definitely. Yes. Yes.
keep it
That's true.
simple. Factor in when you're grilling your house, it makes sense that your grill can move, make it flexible so that in case of an emergency, you need to get out. As opposed to keeping somebody out, you need to get out. Your grill can open so that you can get out of your house and get away from danger. Keep yourself low. If you
Yes.
wake up in the middle of a fire, keep yourself low. Hopefully, you know the way to the nearest exit and you can move to it. Cover your face. Don't grab the door with your palm, burn off your hand and injure yourself. Test it with the back of your hand. Keep moving, keep yourself safe. And it starts with also practice and preparation. So think about a fire drill for your family. As you said, we have them at work, we have the safety tools at work, but we don't have them at home. So it makes sense to go think about it, prepare, and your home is the biggest investment. Your home is where you spend your life, the way you make your life, you know what I mean? Damage and loss to your home is something that can be really, really tragic. So it's up to us to keep the fire safety and the awareness up so that we can preserve that investment. All right. Let me switch back to something that's similar. That's something that should be of concern to you is the crank call situation, Mr. Ebanks. What's going on with that?
that is definitely a huge factor that we have to deal with. If we look at, let me just pick a year at random. 2019. But 2019 we had 1,204 prank calls. In 2020 we had 1,190. Now you remember earlier I said one of the fire trucks costs sometimes upwards of $100 million. Let me put things into perspective. Earlier this year, yes, we had a call in an area of St. Anne that St. Anne's Bay truck would have been the closest. Brownstone truck, would have been the closest. Brownstone was out of the fire. St. Anne's Bay was out of a fire. And it would have been impractical to take Oterius to go all the way up to the border of St. Anne and Clarendon. So we sent a truck from Clarendon to respond to the border of St. Anne and Clarendon. When that truck got to that area, they searched the area for approximately 45 minutes to an hour, tried calling back the individual, got no answer, and eventually we realized it was a prank call. While they were coming back from that call, they had a motor vehicle accident. Put this into perspective now. The lives of the firefighters, the lives of other road users placed at risk. Individuals who that fire truck would have served as their response unit in Clarendon, they are now out of coverage. The other person that was involved in the accident happened to be a delivery truck. This was this gentleman's way of earning his bread.
Livelihood, yeah.
Family is now placed at risk because the vehicle that is used to earn a living for the family is now incapacitated. The individual could have died, firefighters, other road users, and we could go on, but I think we get the picture from there. Just don't do it. It's as simple as that. Yep. It makes absolutely no sense. And I always point out to individual, you call and you give a prank call. And let us look at the situation that you have in where you are located now. So you're at 58A, and that's where the fire truck is. And somebody from Crossroads send the fire truck on a prank call at Clock Tower. Now, What is happening is that the other area is now at risk. So that's a prank call that takes them 10, 15 minutes to get to the area, search the area out. While they are there, a genuine call comes in the opposite direction. What will now happen is that we will have to send another fire truck from somewhere else to go and provide coverage there. So the fire call that could have been responded to in 5 to 10 minutes, the response time will now be increased to maybe half an hour. And you are the person who placed that prank call. You kind of see how things are stacking up against, you know. So it's really something that, you know, we really ask persons, all emergency services, just don't do it. And it used to be children, because sometimes you can detect age and maturity or immaturity in our voice. But sometimes we are getting these calls from adults as well.
Yep.
And it's not a situation where we can say that's so like a prank call and we're not responding. We are duty bound to respond. So you might have a gut feeling that this is a prank call, but we are duty bound to respond, and we have to respond. So we really, really have to beg individuals, just don't do it, man. It don't make no sense. Plain Jamaican terms, it don't make no sense. It doesn't benefit anybody. And the risk is just way too much. It's not easy maneuvering a truck on a normal roadway, much less high speed in peak hour traffic. I remember taking one of your camera crews on a simulation exercise, showing them the difficulties that we come across taking a truck from Orange Street through Crossroads in peak hour traffic, down Mullines Road, half a tree, and coming back to Orange Street. And when we were through, the cameraman took the tape out and put it in his top pocket. And I said, why you did that? We have more to do. He said, I make sure I say not tape over this, man. The man said, I have no clue that is so much you guys had to go through to respond to a fire.
Yep. So people, crank call, not to mention people who obstruct fire trucks when they're on the road and don't get out of the way. When you see the fire truck coming, I always say, imagine it could be heading to your house.
Exactly.
Could
and
be just
situations like that before. Some persons might think, you know, it is some kind of scare tactics, but we've had one such situation I can remember in Jamaica. This person was constantly blocking the fire truck, not realizing that every turn that they took, the fire truck took it behind them. It was only until they got a phone call and then they realized, and the individual collapsed right there in the motor vehicle. So, and what happened from that now is that we were there, they collapsed and it caused a motor vehicle accident. So we had to pull over and leave persons there to render assistance to that individual who was blocking us, whose fire we were responding to. So it's a situation that we don't want. And as I said, for all emergency services, don't tell yourself that, you know, the fire truck, the ambulance, or the police car, them not going anywhere, them just trying to get out of traffic. Don't do that. You don't know what is happening. And something I want to point out to individuals very quickly. You might see an ambulance or a fire truck proceeding along in traffic, no sirens, nothing at all, and then you see them turn it on. You cannot tell yourself, so because they were there in is traffic they're trying to clear.
Exactly.
Every member in that unit has a cell phone. All our units are assigned cell phones as well. So we can get a call and call them to say, listen, there is a fire at point A, so turn around or proceed from where you are to that fire. So you can't tell yourself that they aren't going anywhere.
Absolutely. I think we've covered a whole range of issues here. So much to do, so much to digest, so much to pay attention to. And I'm hoping that members of the public get the message. The persons who are paying attention get the message, understand that the firefighters are there to lend support, and it's our job to make their job as easy as possible so that they can help to preserve our investment. I remember they are working on your behalf, you know what I mean? Hey, trust me, if a fireman is out there working, he's probably working to save some element that, or some organization or entity or something that in the long run probably could affect you or benefit you in some way. So it just makes sense to lend support to them to help them get their job done and to do it easily, so that they can preserve life and preserve property. That's their goal and that's their objective. So with that said, I guess I'm just going to give the last word to you, Mr. Ebanks, just to give persons the last word on Fire Safety and Life Awareness Week. And, just to let the parting message for you from the Jamaica Fire Brigade.
We, as the Jamaica Fire Brigade, we are observing 150 years of service to the people of Jamaica this year. And we want to beg of you, as I said earlier, walk into a fire station, speak to a firefighter, get acquainted. And part of the job that we do as firefighters is we are the premier emergency responders. So we respond to motor vehicle accidents. We have been seeing a lot of those on the roads recently. So, we really want to beg persons. When you are on the road, focus on driving, focus on whatever it is that you're doing. Forget about the cell phone and all of those things that distract you from the job at hand. Focus on what it is that you're doing so we can reduce the instances of motor vehicle accidents. Of course, we beg of you, go to our social media pages at Jamaica Fire Brigade, get as much information as you can. As I said earlier, go into a fire station. If you know a firefighter, speak to them on a one-on-one level, get information. It cannot be too much because the difference in the information you get might be life and death. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. I think with that said, I don't think there's anything else that we need to add. With that said, I think it's time for us to wrap. Thank you to everyone who tuned into our discussion, especially those of you who send in your questions and your comments. And if you have a question, not to worry, you can send it in. We'll go through afterwards and see if we can get information to you, get the information that you need so that you can get information that you want, so you can learn more about the Fire Brigade and different ways in which you can lend support to the work that they do. Remember now, our audience plays a major part in our show. So if there's anyone in particular you'd like us to have in studio, let us know. We'll try to have that person in studio as soon as possible. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Jamaica Information Service to see who will be in studio next. And while you're at it, there's another reminder that you can check out the work of the Jamaica Fire Brigade on all the social media platforms as well at Jamaica Fire Brigade. So you can check them out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc. We do this every week live on Facebook. I've been your host, Vaughn Davis, and this has been Studio 58A Live. Thank you so much for joining us, and please have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody, and take care, Mr. Ebanks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.